I'm Kevin Ressler, President, CEO of United Way of Lancaster County, and it is my honor to host this conversation today around issues related to Career Ready Lancaster and the ways in which we're working collaboratively to build a workforce that's strong, not just for today, but for tomorrow and the coming future. So thank you all so much for attending this morning. Really grateful for your attendance, as well as those of you who will be catching the recording later because, well, March Madness is happening and some people probably took off today. St. Patrick's Day happened yesterday. Some people probably took off today. Wherever you're catching this, welcome and thank you. So I'm just gonna go on my screen the way I see it here. So Daryl, if you could introduce yourself, let the community know. And in these introductions, what I'm gonna ask you to do is just focus on your organization right now. When we come back to the panelists later, we'll ask you how you got on your career journey. So, you know, where do you fit in this community? What are some of the committees or other things that you serve on?
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Daryl Gordon. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources with the High Companies. The High Companies is a locally grown private organization. It's a big private company in the county. And there's 11 different entities within the High Company. So we cover the gamut of a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different career paths that are available.
Thank you. And we'll go with Brian next.
Hi, I'm Brian Troupe. I'm the superintendent in Ephrata Area School District. We serve about 4,200 students in Northern Lancaster County. I'm excited to be part of this conversation on aligning our district efforts with workforce needs.
Thank you. And Miranda.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everybody. My name is Miranda Martz, and I am the new Pre-Apprenticeship Coordinator for the Manufacturers Association. And the Manufacturers Association just had their 116-year birthday this year, so happy birthday to us. So we must be doing something right if we've been around for so long. But we serve 400 companies, 400 plus member companies in the area with training. So we try and be the gold standard for companies for information and things that they need to learn and little credentials that they might need to learn and to keep up with the trends. So that's what we do.
Thank you. We'll hop over here to Marilyn.
Hi, good morning. Yes, my name is Marlene Barbosa. I am the director for Tech Centro, which is the workforce program at SACA. Tech Centro provides employment opportunities, adult education, and workforce training to our community here in Lancaster County.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least will be Michelle, who will then move into a presentation for us. I will try to follow along and manage that for you, Michelle. And then after that, we'll hop over to a panel conversation that will be directed. We're looking forward to having that conversation. So, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Belliot. I'm the other EASD in Lancaster County. I'm at the Elizabethtown Area School District, and I'm really honored to be here today to really share one district's journey on this process to help develop productive and responsible citizens. That's our goal as educational entities. And just to understand that we are one of many doing this work in this space. I'm so happy to have Dr. Brian Troupe with us today as well, in that we're just one voice in this process, and we look forward to partnering with the community. So, you know, as we look to help grow and shape our young people, we do want them to stay in Lancaster County and to be able to be productive citizens. So this is just our story and our work in progress. And I'll keep reminding you of that because we don't have everything perfectly amplified. As Kevin said, you know, we were well on our way pre-pandemic, and then everything shifted and we found new opportunities that we didn't know that were going to present themselves post-pandemic. And so again, this is just our story and our journey, and I look forward to partnering with all of you and learning and growing myself. So thanks for asking me to be part of this work. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Again, I put it all out there that our story is a work in progress. I have been the superintendent of the Elizabethtown Area School District for 11 years. I've been with the district 14 years, and this is my 32nd year in education. So next slide, please, Kevin. If you're not familiar with the Elizabethtown Area School District, we're in the northwest quadrant of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We have 500 full-time and part-time employees and 3,800 students. We are a slightly declining student population, while our district, our residents not declining. Our number of school age population has been declining. When I first came to the district, we were slightly over 4,000, and over the years, we have seen that decline to 3,800. Next slide, please, Kevin. So this is just a snapshot of our learners. We are predominantly white school district. However, we do have other students with which we serve, and our motto is that we serve all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, economically disadvantaged, English language learners, special education, foster care, homeless. This is just a snapshot of who we are as a school district. Next slide, please. So I've been asked this question, why do we choose a path for our learners to be life ready? Well, our tagline for our vision statement has always been, every student graduates ready to live, learn, and thrive in a global community. Great bumper sticker, right? It sounds really good. It's a goal that we aspire to. However, and we want to always stay future focused. We don't want to live in our past. We want to stay future focused with this work. However, we were noticing that when our students were self-reporting their post-high school plans, and we were following up on that. And then chapter 339 requirements, those are, that's a state requirement for K-12 guidance planning that all school districts have to adhere to. We were looking at our Pennsylvania career and education work standards and what was required there. And then also hearing more about what our workforce development needs were in Lancaster County, whether it was through the Lancaster Chamber, the Economic Development Council, the Workforce Development Board, local businesses. I've been heavily involved in our Career and Technology Center here at Lancaster County, the Career Ready PA Coalition at the state level. All of these were coming to kind of a convergence for us in the Elizabethtown Area School District. Next slide, please. So we took a look at this, and every year at graduation, I would stand up and I would announce the percentage of the graduating class that would go on to 4-year colleges, and those that would go on to 2-year colleges, and those that would go off to the military, and those that were going off to the world of work. But when you take it back to, for us in public education, all means all, we were realizing that a large percentage of our students really didn't have a viable plan post high school. And when I started to talk to those students, we were finding that those that were going off to 4 or 2-year institutions, many of them were not graduating. They were leaving after their first year. And when I would talk to them and ask them why, they said, that's not really what I want to do. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I thought college was the only option for me. And please understand that I am not telling children that they shouldn't pursue a college education. What I want them to be able to do, and what we have looked at here in the Elizabethtown Area School District, are what's a viable path for them to pursue a career. So this happened to converge also with where we were in comprehensive planning. Many of you in the business world call it strategic planning. In Pennsylvania, the term that they give it is comprehensive planning. So next slide, please, Kevin. So we took a look at all of the work that we have been doing over the past 14 years in the district, combining it with our comprehensive planning, and we were clued into a book called What Schools Could Be by Ted Dintersmith. And I'm going to do a shout out to Dr. Brian Troupe, because he was the person who first clued me in on Ted Dintersmith. It's a great read. This book, we not only did a book study internally, but our school board engaged in a public book study at our board meetings discussing chapters of this book publicly. So we would give them questions and they engaged in a public book study on what's the vision of our school district? Where did we want to be? Who did we want to serve? How did we want to serve? And how did we look forward in our vision and not necessarily our past? Honor our past, but keep moving forward. Next slide, please. We coupled this with the work. We are a district that fully embraces the work of Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The school version of that is called Leader in Me. It is a leadership development program that everyone can be a leader, not just those with positional leadership. And so here's just an example of what it looks like at a school level. The tree is really their focus of what happens first with the person themselves. So you have to have control of yourself internally before you are able to exhibit leadership externally. And so we wanted to take all of our knowledge and understanding and work through that organizational vision and process about how we could then make our school much more conducive to future focus and helping to prepare students for a future that we may not have ever imagined. I will tell you, didn't imagine what happened 2 years ago. And so how do we stay resilient? How do we stay future focused? Next slide, please. This quote has resonated with me for the past number of years, and I keep coming back to it, and it's something that we talk about in our district. Our jobs as leaders, teachers, and parents is not to prepare kids for something. Our job is to help prepare kids or prepare themselves for anything, and how they can be flexible and continue to be resilient and take those opportunities to learn and grow. So we used all of this and created a district vision. Next slide, please. Our district vision can be found on our district's website. Our website there is etownschools.org. And really, it paints a picture of the type of organization that we want to be for the benefit of our learners. Next slide, please. Really, in summary of this is to promote learner agency, align resources and supports, not only internally, but also externally, what's available to us as a school system. We don't believe that we are the only teachers of our students. The community, the business world is also part of this. Higher education is part of these opportunities for our students. We want to provide relevant and meaningful programs and practices, as well as experiences for our learners. First and foremost, we want them to be able to earn a high school diploma. We want them to be able to obtain a career that pays a livable wage. We want them, if they so choose, to attend a post-secondary institution to further their education. That can be immediately post-high school, or that can take another path and then continue on with their education. We believe that being a lifelong learner is a skill that we want to develop within our students. And then also, if they so choose, maybe seek an opportunity in our nation's armed forces. It's all looking forward, not in the past. Next slide, please, Kevin. So through our EASD vision, we created a graphic. Our graphic is very symbolic. For us, it is in circles for a reason, because circles always move. They're constantly moving and evolving. In the very center is a life-ready learner. Now, our students are focused. However, we expect our staff at all levels to also be continuous learners, involving both elementary and secondary education through personalization of learning experiences, ongoing two-way communication. We have to have community partnerships to do this work. We cannot do it alone. And we have to build those relationships both internally and externally with our students, with our parents, with our community, with our staff, with other entities that will help us educate children. The gray outside circle are our K-12 departments that we have within our school system that will also help further leverage this work. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we did pre-pandemic, and our very last official convening meeting happened to be March 12th, 2020 from 4 to 6. They were voluntary meetings that we engaged our staff at all levels, both our professional staff and our support staff, our administrative staff, pushing back on our district vision that we had written. It is not that one statement bumper sticker. It fully paints a picture of our goals for our students. We looked at it at various levels. We looked at it in our grade band levels. Then we looked at it K through 12. We looked at it job alike to further help solidify our vision and where we were headed. Next slide, please, Kevin. So this is a draft. You see it is dated at the top. This is actually our 15th draft of this. So it continues to be a work in progress, and we're still not finished yet. We learn and grow every time we attend new workshops, new opportunities, and how we continue to evolve this. But we've evolved it in something called platforms. We did make a specific change away from pathways because we had been a school district that had embarked on pathways a while ago, and we hit some bumps, and we wanted to let people know that we want to honor that former work, but we want to continue to move in a direction that is future focused for our students. So you see that Life Ready is at the top of this particular chart. We want students to be career ready, college ready, working on a profile of a Life Ready learner, our graduation requirements, and our personalized Life Ready portfolio. Whoops, Kevin, you're moving, sorry. And with that, also having well-being and social emotional learning for our students. We do have these 3 platforms. They can go directly school to work. They can take additional credentialing anywhere between a 6-week opportunity to a 1-year opportunity that might be in the area of, licensed cosmetology, where it could take anywhere to 10 months to 12 months if it's a full-time program, a CDL licensure that's a 6-week program, up to an associate's degree or bachelor's degree. Full transparency, our hope is that we can develop programs that students are actually able to earn an associate's degree while still being a high school student. So we try to outline what the expectations are so students understand, and maybe develop more of a career ladder type opportunity where we want everyone to be at graduation and have a launch point that any one of these platforms are available to them. And so we don't want to segment them into a tract, but that any one of these platforms is an opportunity. At the same time, and this is where the next slide comes in, Kevin. At the same time, all of this work was happening, we started to engage in partnerships that really connected us to the work of what is now known as Career Ready Lancaster. The Workforce Development Board was a critical piece. Many of us had attended a symposium that they had hosted, and we started talking with an educational group called NC3T, but it was really where business, education, and community groups started to come together, and I'm going to use a Covey term of synergize, and continue to launch this work so that we could begin to see tangible results of how we supported students and also those who were seeking careers in our community, in our county. Next slide, please. So I am a member of the Advisory Council for Career Ready Lancaster, and I'm very proud to be part of this group. Brian is also a colleague on here, and I recognize many folks who have joined today who are members of Career Ready Lancaster. And so really what Career Ready Lancaster is we're a career pathways partnership, and we link people with careers. This has been achieved through that collaboration of education, business, and community groups. And we will, not we want to, we will develop a quality workforce for a strong local economy. This is our elevator speech. You will hear this from any member of the Career Ready Lancaster group. And we're excited about where this has been moving. We really started back in 2018, 2019, and it has been evolving. And to share a little bit more, next slide, please. There's a website, and the website is careerreadylancaster.com. It is a wealth of information. It is available to everyone. It is a free website, and there are resources there, whether you are an educator, you're a parent, you're a guardian, you're a student, you're a business, information about how to navigate obtaining a career. Some of this work is happening in our school districts at some level. Others here, if you have ever been a parent or a guardian trying to navigate the FAFSA application, there's some great information on here, and you don't have to feel silly asking those questions. I'm in education, and when I tried to navigate that for my daughter, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I live this all of the time. And so Career Ready Lancaster has done an excellent job pulling together resources, and we hope to continue to grow this resource and keep developing it. Next slide, please, Kevin. One of the items that as an educational entity, I have really grabbed a hold of is this concept of the high five. And this was an outgrowth of Career Ready Lancaster and the 3 work groups within this organization that businesses were saying they wanted their employees to have. And as school systems, we were saying we wanted our students to have. And it was really a wonderful intersection that grew into the high five. And the high five elements are integrity, resilience, problem solving, communication, and teamwork. And I'd like everybody to just take a pause here and say, if you had employees or you had future employees that had these 5 elements, would you be able to teach them what they needed to know about your business or your industry or your organization if they had these 5 elements? And for us, it was absolutely yes. Many people call these the soft skills or the employability skills. We're calling them employability skills here in the Elizabethtown Area School District. And for us, this dovetailed very nicely with our work with Covey's 7 Habits. Next slide, please, Kevin. So for us as a district, we're always embarking on what are those cognitive, personal, interpersonal competencies that our learners will need to be successful in life. Many of us figured out the game of how to be successful in school, but that's not really what we're aiming for. We want our graduates to be successful in life. And my students here in Elizabethtown know I've said to them that it's not our goal for them to graduate from high school, go off, and then come back to their parents' or guardians' couch and binge watch Netflix for the rest of their lives. Our goal is to get them into a successful career, a contributing member of our society. So a couple of opportunities that we have here in Elizabethtown. Next slide, please. And this continues to evolve. We have pre-apprenticeship opportunities with ABC builders, independent contractor, electrical contractors, the Manufacturers Association. We've created a partnership with the emergency medical technician, both basic and advanced EMT with Northwest EMS here in our school district. We have a certified nursing assistant program and co-op education work experience and internship with Masonic villages here in Elizabethtown. We offer advanced placement courses, just like many of my colleagues across our county. We do heavily partner with the Career and Technology Center. Full disclosure, I'm the current superintendent of record at the CTC, so I have a love of that work. We have early enrollment opportunities in that we have a winter graduation ceremony. This was our second year. We had 44 students complete all of the necessary graduation requirements, and they were able to do early enrollment into college or start their career because they had to have a viable career plan, or start some of their credentialing opportunities. We have service learning opportunities in our district. We have some of our classes that are taught by our own teachers that are also receiving college credit because they have been certified by those institutions. We have dual enrollment where our students are still enrolled here at Elizabethtown Area School District, but take college credits at the collegiate level. They might either attend on site or
Michelle, if you can
a
hear me.
military.
Sorry, you froze there for a second, Michelle. If you want to
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
like 15 seconds, you'll be fine.
Okay. Am I still there?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. We are building we have junior ROTC. That's what everybody knows it as. Junior ROTC means that the federal government will pay a portion of this. We actually have an NNDCC program, which means that the school district has to pay for it. It is through the Navy. It is actually leadership development for students. They do not have to have a career in the military afterwards, but they can be involved in these leadership development courses. And so that's something new that we're starting for next school year. Next slide, please, Kevin. So if you're a business and you go, how can I be a part of this work? Well, this is just for Elizabethtown, but I know this would apply to many of my colleagues across Lancaster and Lebanon counties. Here's some benefits of getting your business involved. More productivity. We can have interns that function in your business and help with the workflow to cover gaps in your operations. You can infuse some creativity and new ideas. Our interns can offer a slightly new perspective. I was talking with a group this morning and they said just the technology knowledge that students bring to the table. They were looking to develop a social media platform and our students were able to help them with that in half the amount of time that they had been investing in to engage in a social media platform. You can create opportunities for high school students with meaningful hands-on real world experience. Some of our students think that they want to go into a career and unfortunately they get into that career and they go, whoa, that's not what I thought it was going to be. Or I wish I would have known this earlier because I would have taken a different path. So having interns and co-op experiences really provide that opportunity. And it gives you an opportunity to build your brand earlier with high school age students. And so those are just one of the many. I do have the contact information here for the Elizabethtown Area School District. We have Mrs. Jackie Spittle. She is our director of our program. She is fantastic in this space. And unfortunately, we only have one person helping to organize all of this with some administrative support. But if you're on this call and you go, hey, I would love to engage with the Elizabethtown Area School District, we would love to hear from you. And so the final slide, because I was only given a short time here, the final slide is, as a district, we continue to be a work in progress. We want our students to live, learn, and thrive in a global community with real hands-on experiences that they can contribute not only to our community, but to Lancaster and be able to give back. And we believe that is through real world experiences so that we can continue to build a community that makes the most sense for the future. And Career Ready Lancaster has really helped us further engage in that work. So Kevin, I hope I stuck to the time frame for you. Because those folks that know me know I can talk for hours about our kids.
Yes, yes, and a little long, but it was all very good and really appreciated that. I've got a couple of questions I'm going to hop to directly here for you, Michelle, before
Sure.
we move a little bit away from the presentation. The first
Sure.
question was, do you have any connections with the Lancaster Juvenile Detention Center? I think sort of broadly criminal justice, what are the interactions there?
So sometimes those interactions are not as positive as we would like them to be. I'd like to remind everybody that students sometimes make poor choices. However, it's great when they do it while they're still within the K-12 setting, because we can help redirect them to make more positive choices. So we don't have real strong connections there. So if you know of somebody that you want to connect me with, send them my way or send me their way.
Great. The other question is, how about your engagement with students with children? Is this population included in your Life Ready model? How do you think about that?
Yeah, actually it is. So some of the programs that we engage with, we have Lancaster County Academy, and we have had students who have attended Lancaster County Academy as a partnership with us. And actually one of those students just graduated in December. Brought their child to graduation, part of the celebration. And when we do a winter graduation, we do the full gamut: caps, gowns, processional, speeches, the whole 9 yards. It really mirrors our spring. And she said that the opportunities that were provided to her through this allowed her to be able to continue to raise her child and graduate, because we do want students to be able to get a high school diploma. That is so important. We are working with our local magistrate as well to develop a GED program, but our goal really is to get students to graduate with that high school diploma, so that it is that one more ticket for success as they move forward.
Thank you. I'm going to hop on the question a little bit, because you got into this, and this is an important component when we talk about racial equity. We know definitively that across the nation, so not picking on E-Town, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, and Brian, maybe you as well. How are you addressing the realities of, particularly Black boys get sent to punishment before they are evaluated for whether or not they should be in gifted placement, right? It's personal. It happened to me. It took a long time for the school to recognize I was advanced and bored out of my mind, right? I wasn't causing problems because I was a problem child. I was having issues retaining attention once I had understood the concept, and the system continued to slow at paces, understandably. So how do you address restorative justice practices, or understanding and digging deeper than just saying action happened, consequence, 3 strikes, 0 tolerance, those types of things that were the way that schools operated when I was there? How do you think about that when students are making choices you wouldn't want them to?
So Kevin, you actually told me your story when we first met through Career Ready Lancaster. And so a couple of things that we're doing is that we do not have a strong restorative justice system within our school district. So that is actually an area that we are targeting for professional development later this spring and this summer. We are also have a team, and Brian probably has the same thing, and many other districts are sending a team to the data summit next week that the Department of Education is holding, so that we can review our data to make sure that we are not unintentionally marginalizing students or having preconceived notions. With our work with the Covey Institute, we did go through an administrative training and board training on unconscious bias. It wasn't the educational version of it. It was the corporate version of unconscious bias, so that we understand that everyone has bias. And it's not either good or bad, it's what you do with that bias. So as we have gone through that training and begin to look at our data, now I will tell you that we have an incredibly strong partnership with Masonic Villages, and they have a children's home. A large number of the students with which we serve through the children's home are students of color. However, those are not the students who you are saying that are getting into trouble or making poor choices. In fact, I love having those students. And if you would talk to our administrators and our students and our faculty, we love partnering with Masonic Children's Home and having students, because we do have a little bit more diversity in our school district. Because of that, we don't have the magic potion, though. I know we have challenges, and it's something we're actively looking at of how to address.
Nobody does, obviously. So, but it's
But
important.
we're just more aware of it so
Right.
that we can begin to look into it.
I'm dropping in the chat for everyone a link to ProPublica, is a media agency, and they had done incredible research on racial inequity at your school. You can go here and you can plug in any elementary, middle school, high school, and look at some of these types of questions about how are we interacting with students of color in those schools? What is teacher to student ratio, and a variety of things. So I'd encourage you all to look at that, because, what I want to move into here is, this conversation with the panelists. And so welcome back, panelists. And, I want you to think both in your own personal journeys, if that makes sense, or in your career pathways. And the first question, I want to ask to Daryl here. I'm going to ask, when you're recruiting, specifically on this issue of diversity, when you're recruiting diverse populations in Lancaster. Now, I know you and I have had this chat, black man to black man. What are some of the challenges of not just recruiting, but also retaining? So, high is a great opportunity for people, both with formal education or without, to have a career that's sustainable, that's livable wages. So we want to bring those individuals in. Can you talk a little, Daryl, about the challenges both of recruitment and then also retention for particularly diverse populations?
Sure, Kevin, and we can spend a week on this subject alone, but from my perspective, it is a very challenging paradox, right? On the one hand, we all know the benefits of diversity, right? There's increased problem solving, there's different point of views, there's healthy debate as a result of people having different experiences and different backgrounds and different cultures. We all know, and we read the studies, that it's just better when you have diverse populations working together, right? And you have to be acceptable of wanting to work with different populations. And when you do that and you do it well, it also breaks down the ignorance, right? It breaks down that big barrier of somebody being different. And when you break that down and you learn a person as to who they are, you really do reap the benefits of that, both personally, and I think the other person reaps those benefits as well. So we say all that, right? And that comes really strong out of the one side, but what's the other side? Well, I don't want to leave my network, right? I don't want to leave everyone that looks like me. I'm scared to make that leap. I look at Lancaster County and I see the pie of, huge percent of white and very little percent that looks like me. Why would I want to make that jump? And then I'll try it and run into a couple situations or opportunities and not want to stay. That's the challenge. We want those benefits that I just talked about, and we know they work when you do it, but getting through those hurdles along the way is the huge challenge that I think we all face. Some of us have made that jump, and that we regret some things. Well, there's been experiences in our lives where we think back of, man, why did I do that? But I would say the positives far outreached those moments of challenges. And getting others to understand that is that recruitment dilemma. So, we do it, and there's pockets of it, but we all need to come together, just like we did as Michelle talked with CRL. Like all of us, both education, business, government need to just continue to come together so that we can bring in more of the network feel, more of those professional services that are available to folks that look differently, so that are more comfortable. We have excellent medical care up here, but we don't have a strong presence in the African-American community of dermatologists, right? And if we had more of those types of amenities and those professionals that come along with, I think people may feel more comfortable with the network that's available, and they can feel more comfortable of not only having people that look like them that they can relate to better, but also it'll start to challenge them to talk to people that don't look like them. And again, have that better problem solving, have that better, you build those friendships, start to ask questions and learn different cultures, and then start to accept it and learn people for who they are. So that's what I think we're faced with as not just a Lancaster community, but in a lot of different communities across the United States.
Right, broadly. Yeah, so, and we'll return here. We've got some questions coming in. Thank you all. And questions that we don't get answered, we'll try to distribute to get information out afterwards, because we'll always run out of time. I want to hop over here. Miranda, I think that there's an element here that you can tie into what Daryl's talking about, with relation to, and maybe about your own career journey. Just I know a little bit about it, but how does apprenticeship, the sort of work that you do, how does this sort of meet into Michelle's conversations about 2-year, 4-year? We looked and there was a decline in 2-year, 4-year colleges in her charts there. We've got a question from David Barton here about what does an applicant need to improve in. Can you talk about how apprenticeship fits into this conversation of education? It may have something to do with when we think about racial demographics, that populations that have difficulty affording college because of historical disenfranchisement, and they don't have the same level of equity or a home to put. So where does apprenticeship fit in as a solution that's not just that traditional pathway of?
Well, I can talk to you a little bit about my journey and how I got into an apprenticeship. And I didn't really do well in school either. And I was part of that diverse population that maybe you didn't traditionally think of a female being in manufacturing or being a machinist. But the apprenticeship kind of gave me my step up into my career. Without the apprenticeship, I didn't really get the attention that in high school that I thought that I would get. I went to a school that was basically 4-H based. And I didn't really want to go into 4-H, and I was kind of pushed into like a 4-year traditional college atmosphere. And then that ended up failing because it was too much like school for me, and I hated school. So then I got a job that I hated, and then it just kind of like steamrolled into that. And then I got into manufacturing, and I found some way that actually made me feel like I could do something, and it was empowering. And that's kind of like how I feel being like a pre-apprenticeship coordinator. What I do is I start the pre-apprenticeship, and that's like a pathway for students that are in high schools to get into the apprenticeship program. But I just want my classroom to know that, I welcome anybody and everybody, and I want to make that a safe space that everybody feels like they're connected and that they can express themselves. And what makes them different is basically their superpower, right? What makes you diverse and what makes you unique is what we're looking for in the industry. It's constantly growing and changing. But there are so many places that you can go. Like there's obviously Career Ready Lancaster, there's us, there's women in manufacturing, women in construction, just these places where you can get education and you can get support and care. And for me, I would say, I see a lot of that in my classroom, unfortunately, especially with the underserved kids. I tell them, I'm there. I'm kind of like their mom. I'm like their counselor and their mom. I don't have my kids, so I kind of treat them as my kids. But I want them to unlearn the diversity, and I want them to unlearn their bias, on top of learning the skills that they're going to need for their future. I want them to unlearn all the bad stuff that came with that. And getting into an apprenticeship really is going to boost them in their career. They get paid while they're doing an apprenticeship at a company. You might start at the bottom and start at your apprenticeship, but then when you show them the skills, you basically really have to show them who you are. Show them your skills, show them that you're willing to start at the bottom and go to the top. And that's the best way to learn and to grow in a company. And that's how I learned. So that's what I instill in my classroom. And I hope and I listen to my mom in the back of my mind, because she was telling me, no matter what, you can do whatever you want just by showing who you are. And I really try and instill that with my kids.
So what I want to take away from what I'm hearing here is two really important, I think, valuable things that you're highlighting. One is when you say unlearn diversity, and you clarified. So what you mean is unlearning the negatives of what is being identified, telling people that they're lesser or they're not as valuable. Your apprenticeship model also allows, sort of answers Mike Lewis had a question here about what programs are being used to help businesses and organizations work with their employees who are in poverty to promote retention and a more productive work environment. Well, here you're making money while you're actually going through that apprenticeship program, right? So if your family can't afford to go to college, or it's just not something that you're wanting to add on to your debt, including even a skills-based college. So not just the four-year colleges, but those two-year colleges. I think this is such an important point that you're making. And you said something that was really valuable to me personally, saying that essentially your diversity, your uniqueness is your superpower. Right? So being able to articulate to an employer that I am more valuable because I'm unique, not less valuable. It's not a hurdle to overcome. It's a benefit to promote. And when you have the apprenticeship, you've got skills with you to say, and I have practical skills walking in the door. I'm going to hop to Marlene Barbosa, because Tech Centro is a similar type of conversation here, right? If you want to talk a little bit about what Tech Centro does, and when I visited you, I found it really fascinating how many people were older and doing a career shift, including, and as well as some young people, because of the time that they could attend having kids. But all of them were also answering this question that Mike's asking about. They were trying to further their economic well-being for themselves and their families.
Absolutely, Kevin. I think Tech Centro really was created to fill that gap in the community. We know that our community, Black and Brown communities, they weren't served by the traditional workforce program, not because they didn't want to, it's because they didn't provide comprehensive access. So this is not about equal access, it's about making being equitable. Like, not everybody needs have the same needs. So meeting our clients and students where they at makes a difference. So Tech Centro was created to do that, to fill that gap, to ensure that our community and adults, my average age is 35 years old in the training programs we offer, have a second chance and a change of careers. We are removing barriers. About 80% of the clients that we are serving don't have any college degree or education. 65% have a high school diploma. So what we wanted to do is remove any kind of barriers for those participants to ensure they can get into the workforce with additional skills, having a technical program available for them. And we did that by providing free access. I think our community sometimes cannot afford to pay $6,000 for a training program. So providing that free access to them really allows them to move into the career ladder and secure a better job. Another way that we're removing those barriers is, for example, academic. Maybe they don't went to school because they didn't feel that they were academically ready for that. So by providing ESL classes, by providing high school diploma equivalency, we are removing those barriers for them to join these programs. And the last, I think, is providing that a comprehensive access. I think finding ways how to give them access to workforce training in a creative way makes a difference. Meeting them where they are. I have a lot of students that they needed more English. Maybe they needed flexible schedules, and the traditional programs don't do that for them. oh, I mean myself, sorry, putting all those services really allow them to. My main goal is to empower them, to help them get that job, but also providing a platform for HAC or Thaddeus Stevens, which are my educational partners, for those students to continue their education. I am believing in higher ed education, but I am also believe that it's not for everybody. And maybe that we have to change how we provide those access to our community.
And thank you. And just so people know, the Tech Center is a part of SACA, the Spanish American Civic Association. And they have 2 locations in the city of Lancaster, one in the east side, southeast side, and one in the southwest side. And a special note of thanks to Daryl's team, who are one of the heavy funders of that program and also work in conjunction with their own welding program and other things. So, this conversation, this Career Ready conversation and broader workforce conversation is collaborative in a variety of ways, funding and partnership and pathways, and that's important. Brian, you have talked, I've heard you talk a number of times, and one of the things I do appreciate that you talk about is you talk about this, we've got a question here about, how students are sort of being, in many cases, it probably comes from, depending on your family, but this sort of college for all mentality that we've historically had. And I know that you talk about that in a way similar to what Michelle's talking about. How are you all addressing that and the balance between, right, like pendulum swings, right? Like we don't want to go from college for all to college for none and skills-based learning for all. So how is your school thinking about navigating that conversation?
Well, thank you. I was hoping I could just sit here and listen to the panel the rest of the time. I'm taking lots of notes and some great stuff. And before I respond there, Kevin, wow, what Michelle shared at the beginning, very impressive. It's been a while since I was kind of updated on the work at eTown, and it's impressive and inspiring. It's great to have colleagues like Michelle and many others in our county from the school side looking to blur the lines and actually do a better job of aligning school outcomes with employer needs. And then that brings me to the Career Ready Lancaster whole objective is connecting those. So we kind of have to blur in both directions, where we have to make the high school experience, set them up for a real-time work experience. And part of that is actually, to your question, Kevin, part of that is giving them an experience beforehand, looking at those 3 circles of what they're good at, what they're passionate about, and then what they can make a living doing. The intersection of those 3 circles, we should give them a couple opportunities to test that out before they leave us. That's part of our responsibility, to send them off in a trajectory towards their future, not wait till they graduate and then decide, hey, what am I going to do next? Or go off to college and think, hey, what's my major going to be? We should be able to at least narrow that scope and put some parameters in that where they know, hey, this is something I tried and I don't like, or this is a type of lifestyle I don't want, and I should choose something else. And with the the trades and the careers that are available with some technical skills, whether it's at the CTC or some on-the-job training through an apprenticeship program, or even a 2-year degree, the variety of paths to success in the real world after high school has now diversified in such a way where it's not, I don't think anyone assumes that if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful, or that that's the exclusive path to success. And if I can, while I have the floor here, when you think about that, the work that was done at eTown and what Career Ready Lancaster's trying to do across the county is really that in recognition that the state, the federal accountability structure for education doesn't aim at some of these things that are most valuable, like resiliency, integrity, problem solving, communication, teamwork. That can't be assessed on a multiple choice standardized assessment, but that's the high stakes that we're all under. So it takes some courage and some support from the team at the district and the board in particular to endorse this other direction that means more for kids. It's beyond. I mean, certainly you have to have some base knowledge. You can't think critically about nothing. You have to have some knowledge there, but applying that is what makes a difference in real life. And it's good for employers, and the conversation so far, we've talked about that, but it's good for bosses. I want my boss to have integrity, to be a problem solver, to be a communicator. I want my teammates to have those traits. I want my neighbors, my community members to have those traits. So it's not just, while this is certainly an improvement in workforce readiness, but it's also an improvement in quality of individual that are graduates and continuing to be members of our community.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We see right now fraying community. The sense of my neighbor is someone who is inherently valuable to me is no longer the case. It's now my neighbor who puts that particular yard sign is valuable to me. And that neighbor, as far as I'm concerned, can whatever, right? And so understanding that what we're building is also culture, right? It's that different cultural element. So this question I really want to ask, because I'm going to try to pull together a couple of these questions that are going in the Q&A here in the same. And the question is really about, it's about diversity. It's about equity. So as you're doing this Life Ready model or the stuff you're doing in effort, Brian, and I'm going to ask the other three of you a similar question in a minute, but specifically from education, how are you thinking about marginalized populations, not just Black, but, language, I don't know the stats for your schools, but school district language has something like 70 different languages represented in the school, right? And our county, I've got a racial equity survey that we're going to be releasing with HIGH and some other partners, the Chamber and others here in the next couple of months. And what we're seeing is a significant increase in diversity at the high school age, basically every school district. The school district I grew up in, Conestoga Valley, was almost exclusively white school district when I graduated in 2003. It is now approaching 50%. And so, the acceleration of diversity on the youth is really important. The statistics coming out about LGBTQ population percentage, as we have a society that's more open and welcoming to allowing individuals to be who they are and who they were created to be. I say that as a pastor, by the way, just to add that in, that there are people who understand that God creates people in a diverse sense. And it's important that we as a society embrace and recognize the authenticity of individuals. And that means making sure that systems, as you talked about, Brian, our systems are always slow. So our systems that we inherent regulations and others are always late. So how are you in your educational spaces making sure that that career pathway, that Life Ready model, Michelle, is identifying that individuals with learning disabilities or individuals living with an intellectual disability, work may not be the objective. The human beings are more than just the productivity that they provide to the GDP. So how are you having Life Ready for someone for whom that isn't their ideal or really their place in our society? Their contributions are varied and different. How are you making sure that you're not missing that one student, literally to that point, that one student who is inherently different than all of your others? What are you making sure to not, I hate to say leave no child behind because that has a bad connotation, but how are you making sure that you're not leaving kids out of the conversation?
I think you saw it in Michelle's slides, and our vision statement is achieving success one student at a time. And the whole idea of being personalized in instruction, personalized in relationship building with each individual. Your story, Kevin, about discipline was provided to you instead of support and understanding. I'd like to think that changed in the last 10 or 15 years, where we know a lot more about the root cause of behaviors in students. And I know, every week there's a team at my high school and in middle school with guidance counselors and administrators looking at individual students and trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here that's causing this behavior? The behavior certainly may need to get addressed, but the root cause needs to be supported. And our goal, really, we want every student to feel like they belong in our school, regardless. That's those that are, parents went there and they've been a part of our system forever, as well as those furthest from opportunity. And we take that all students in our mission statement, and every personalized learning meeting is about the individual. One thing we've done recently with ESSER funds, really tried to increase that support by creating 2 positions that are student engagement facilitators, that their focus is really to hear the student voice, all students, those being successful, those not being successful, and do root cause analysis to what's going on there. What's the missing piece in that, whether it's in school and instructional, or at home, and just regular support that they need outside of the home. So we're trying to address those by hearing from them, hearing from students, looking at their success patterns, and trying to address those regardless of whose responsibility they may be.
So I'll just piggyback on Brian's, and I was smiling when you were asking about those students maybe with cognitive disabilities, because as we were developing our Life Ready model, I had a colleague, and we've talked about this openly, so I'm not sharing information that shouldn't be shared. And he started to tear up and he said, my son is in a multiple disabilities class and will never be able to achieve our Life Ready model. So we've been very intentional about our transition programming between school and post high school, of what that looks like, giving them opportunities. I had mentioned, excuse me, Masonic. We have students that go there to learn a skill and a trade, both in their food service industry, their hospitality, their launder service. We have a program here. We have a, they're called the E-Town Bakers, and they bake and then they sell. They have their own business, trying to give them truly those life skills that they need. Teaching them how to, especially in Elizabethtown, get a bus pass. How are they going to, have access to transportation? That's quite a challenge here in the Northwest quadrant of the county. So we continue to try to be very intentional to think about all students. We talk about LGBTQ plus and what we do for all students, making sure that they have those safe spaces with which they can be their true self. I know that there's a lot of controversy around that, but the reality is, as a public school entity, we have a moral obligation to serve all students, not just some, not just the ones that were easy, not the ones that were like Kevin that were maybe difficult. We have an obligation to serve all of our students, and we don't get to select and go, we're only going to teach these students, and we're only going to teach these students and everyone else. So that's our moral obligation as public educators, to do that. We also tap in through, we do student surveys through our work with Leader and Me and Covey, and their culture surveys and their access surveys for students of, when is the last time you felt an adult in the school system truly heard you? Who do you feel that you have trusted adults that you can go to? And that's part of our annual survey process, where we get that information back and then we use it to build our plans. I do love Brian's idea of a student engagement facilitator. Once again, I'm going to steal ideas from Ephrata. And so, those are just some of those ways. Again, I don't want to ever portray that we've got this all figured out, because as those of you that have that are parents to multiple children, that even though they're in the same household, they don't all behave the same way with the same level of expectations. And so when you magnify that by a couple of thousand students and a number of employees, it's a work in progress for us. But if we come with a mindset that every child matters and every staff member matters, and how we can work in the community, that just helps us.
So that's great. I'll use that as a segue. The reality is that your school, and this is a reminder to education, particularly public education, you may be the safest place for a child. Mm-hmm. It may not be safe for them at home. And so being able to make sure that when they can't be themselves at home or in other community spaces, that you have supports is so important. And I'll just mention, Michelle, also look over at School District, who's done amazing work as a restorative justice champion, actually has student mediators. He trains students to mediate the solutions within the school. I think that's a tool that can be looked at and modeled as well. So, I'm going to segue that sort of disability conversation back to the sort of manufacturing team here we've got in this conversation. When I was at Meals on Wheels, as the director there, we partnered with Accenture, we partnered with the Occupational Development Center where my wife had worked at the time, and we ended up with, to what Michelle's highlighting here, we ended up with a large number of individuals who volunteered, because it's part of what they do to get in the community, to help us prepare meals. Like, they actually helped us cook. We hired an individual with a disability to be the dishwasher. He's paid full staff, and all those things. When you're working in Daryl, hiring, what kinds of sort of modifications, what kinds of supports are you putting in place to be able to allow individuals to work? And I think for the manufacturing educational side, Barbosa, Martz, for you two, how are you, sort of seeing and encountering that and providing supports so that individuals who can go into a competitive workforce can go in there and be supported and thrive?
So it's a great question. The staple of the high philosophy is that respect and dignity. It's given everyone an opportunity and a chance, and also providing them a safe space so that they're not having to deal with any type of harassment or bullying or any of those aspects. And we take a pretty strong zero tolerance on that. Our track record has been phenomenal. There's very little complaints that come out of the high companies because of our training and development and the way we set the expectations for leadership, et cetera. And we do the same thing when we're hiring. There are certain jobs where you just can't make that reasonable accommodation. It's just physically impossible to do it, but there's a lot of jobs where we can. And we try to make the appropriate changes or modifications so that that person can be a valuable net provider of themselves and their family, as well as the company. And because we had 2,000 employees, and as I mentioned before, we stretch across 11 different entities, there are those opportunities. Michelle just brought up one, like we have laundry services. We have certain tasks that do take minimum cognitive skills that are valuable for the experience of our customer base, for the experience of our market, and so that we can serve our market. Especially in this labor market, we can't not make the appropriate adjustments that's reasonable so that, again, we can serve the markets that we serve. So to answer your question, yes, accommodations are made. We do have a pretty decent size population of those that need adjustments or that have disabilities. And we welcome that with our arms wide open.
Thank you. Marlene or Miranda, how does sort of making accommodations across that whole spectrum of diversity beyond just race, or even, well, I'll leave it at that, beyond race, because we talked about that quite a bit. How else are you thinking about that? Language access being one, of course, too.
So Tech Centro, we provide this holistic approach where we have career navigators, not just focusing on what career path they're going to, but serving as case managers, so creating that support system that the students need through the process. And to give you an example, although that we are working with adults, we are finding young adults that had an IEP in school, in the traditional school settings, that now they're doing a workforce program, they are facing barriers. And when we dip into the issues that we're having academically, we realize that they have an IEP and they're thinking that that's not valid now in the adult arena. And we were able to provide accommodations for those participants, following some of the guidelines of the IEP. So that's one of the examples how we are really trying to help them. And this, again, is not about being equal, it's about equity, and it's about meeting everybody where they are. And this is something that it really makes a difference in our students. So besides the language that we do provide the support as well, and the financial part is looking beyond just coming to class one day or why didn't show the next day, is deeping more into the issues or getting to the roots and how we can provide access. Because at the end of the day, they're adults, but they need help. And this is what we are there, is to create that support. And we know our communities need more help than others. So this is what Tech Centro is here for.
And just to piggyback off of what she said, what we do is there are jobs open to everybody. And everybody deserves to be treated with respect, no matter where you come from or what your background is or who you are as a person. And I always like to use the adage that machines don't discriminate, people do. So there's obviously in manufacturing, we all know the jobs that are open at manufacturing. There's many, many different jobs in the 400 companies that we work with. I can't tell you how many jobs that there are or different accommodations that you can have. And, you know, Career Ready Lancaster, with all of the subcategories and sub companies that they work with, we also do something called manufacturing pathway training for an underserved community. So we also not just serve to the kids and the underserved children, because they come into our class as well, but we help with the adults, and we give them like soft skills, and we give them some of the like basic shop math and blueprint reading and measurements and stuff, skills that they're going to need to get into a job so that they feel comfortable going into that sort of facility.
So I'm curious. So I am a millennial. Some on my staff who are on the younger side of millennials call me a geriatric millennial, but I am a millennial. And the reason I love Gen Z is because now people don't understand them even more than they don't understand millennials. So I'm no longer the bottom of the totem pole. So I'm curious, what are some, so imagine, you know, talking to employers right now who are saying, I've got these openings and I can't fill them, right? What are some of the differences generational that you're seeing that maybe younger generations do or operate differently, that maybe some of our tried and true practices need to be a little more flexible to understand a new generation and how to interact with them? What, you know, we often say the employee needs to bend to the employer. Well, I hate to tell everybody, but it is an employee market right now. It is not an employer market. And what happens when that is the case is the employers have to start to bend more than maybe they're used to. So what are some of the things, Daryl, whether that you're seeing at High or in the schools or in your training programs, that you're seeing that maybe some of these younger you know, graduating students, these classes 2022, 2023, what would you encourage businesses or owners of companies to think about to make the accommodations, not just for diverse populations, but sort of generationally?
Well, companies always look at their capital expenditures, and they're always looking on how to increase the innovation and the technology. Well, that's on as fast paced as possible, because the younger folks coming in are well adapted to use and want to use that latest and greatest technology piece. But it's expensive as well. And I think trying to get them to understand that that total cost value proposition on you know, how you have to cost that out and then have a return on it is the challenge of trying to educate those younger folks coming in. The other big challenge we have as a company, we're going to do some work on this, is the older generation enticing the younger folks because of the way their mind frame is and the way they used to work and the way they used to come in and break their back and go above and beyond. We're seeing from the younger generations that they don't want to work overtime. They don't want to work Saturdays. They have a much different perspective on the work-life balance, which is great. But there's sometimes where you just have to do what you have to do to have that sustainability of the business and to have the growth mindset. So, you know, in having an old timer say, well, that kid don't want to work. We got to have those sessions with those populations as well as the new folks coming in and try to balance it. There was something mentioned earlier. I'm kind of switching gears a little bit. The unconscious bias. That is something that is real. We have that as a strategic action item for us this year to work on at the top of the house, all the way down through the employment population. Just a funny story on that, and Michelle mentioned it earlier, we all have an unconscious bias. It is so true. On our learning management system, one of the courses of the month was unconscious bias, so I took it, and you need a 70 to pass. Brian's probably gonna start laughing. I got a 71 and I was so happy, but it was not easy, and it really did highlight how we all have some opportunities within that mind frame and within that work set. So we know that the walls inside a high are not perfect. We know we have our own opportunities to just get good, better, and best. And that is a strategic item that we're going to take on this year.
I can jump in here and just comment, Kevin, on what you had asked about the changing, challenge of engaging employees, because if you think about the work that we ask kids to do, especially in middle school and high school, the shift has been, we have a shorter window to make things relevant to something that the learner is passionate about before we lose them. So the more we try and just work from a compliance mindset, the less engaged our students become. The more we give agency to them and have them have input and co-design their instruction, co-design the projects, craft the learning in a way that is relevant and something that they're passionate about. I think this, the graduates and teenage students we have right now, they're actually more willing to put in extra time. They'll put their discretionary time and energy into something. Even if one of the questions when I talk with our high school students, let's talk about an assignment that you would have completed if the teacher said they were canceling it, that you would have completed it anyway. And when you look at those assignments, they're all in their passion area, their interest. They have control over how they're doing the work, who they're doing the work with, what pace they're doing the work. So while, yeah, from one lens, it can look like, oh my gosh, we have to tailor everything to the student. Everything's personalized. They're spoiled because everything is personalized in their life. They have their own news feed, their own, everything can be customized to what they want. At the same time, once you hit that spot, watch out, because they will they'll go bananas with what they're passionate about. And that's kind of the trick of a modern education, is to overlap what we need, what they need for success in life, with what they're willing to throw their discretionary energy and learning towards. And once we hit that sweet spot, that's probably the most rewarding experience for educators that I can imagine.
Well, and just to plug Career Ready Lancaster, which Michelle neglected to mention, I am also on the advisory steering committee.
I was going to say something about her snubbing you like
You're
that.
an integral part of it too. I'm so sorry.
That's right. But one of the things that I appreciate both about the website and the broader work, and we have, I think, not everyone participates all the time, but there's well over 50 active participants in that, and around 100 various groups, organizations, and businesses, just so everyone here has an understanding of the scope of that conversation. If you are interested in being a part of that, please reach out. We will absolutely make sure that you can be a part of that with your business, your school, whatever. It is not a closed group. It is not desired to be small. It is desired to connect all of these resources and opportunities. And so what I want to just add in here on certainly on the website is it gets to what you just talked about, Brian, right? We're saying, look, we're trying to find the pathway that you're passionate about. Instead of this being go to college and spend 4 years figuring out what classes you have enough to make sure you have a major at the end of your 4th year and 8th semester. Now, I'm a huge advocate of 4-year colleges. I actually am a very strong supporter of it, because I think what it does is I think that it provides what we've talked a lot about today. It provides the opportunity to engage with different people with different mindsets, coming from different places, having different experiences. I spent a semester in the Middle East as Eastern Mennonite universities. We studied in Palestine and in Israel and Egypt. And we recently added an extra vacation day here at United Way. And that day does not have a set date. It is a day that someone can use to celebrate something of their own value set and choosing. And the reason was, I had gone in that experience and I had the opportunity to learn about another culture. When I came back, I reached out to a friend of mine at one point in my life, and I observed Ramadan with him. And I learned so much about that. Well, we have our new director of equity, Isa, is also Pakistani. And I was sitting there around Christmas when we had Christmas holiday off. And I thought, well, this isn't something that she celebrates. How am I giving her the opportunity to celebrate something that's of value of hers, right? So college does that. How do we make sure, and this is a question a little bit for the sort of, I think broadly for the educators in the space, how do we make sure that we're not just getting so explicitly skill focused that we miss the opportunities that those four-year colleges have brought in on the global perspectives and learning. How does that show up in your locations, both intentionally or unintentionally? I will just say that in Lancaster County, 96% of teachers, public school teachers, are white. 96%. So how are you making sure that your teachers are prepared, and where does it show up, Miranda, Marilyn? How does it show up, that interaction, so that we don't get too focused on task and miss out on broader awareness?
Yeah, so one of the things in our Life Ready model, we have the dual enrollment classes, we have the college and the high school. We do take students on tours. We have some of the colleges and universities. Now that Zoom has just become, a common everyday place, we have colleges Zooming in to be able to talk to students, doing some of those virtual tours that they can get on campus so that they can experience it. That's one of the reasons why, too, being able to give students an opportunity to begin to obtain some of those college courses. It's always cheaper when they do it while they're in high school, because there's an economic factor of that as well. What we don't want students to do to pay, $100,000, $200,000 to go off to a 2 or 4 year college, and then they do not leverage that investment, or that they have so much debt that they can't get out of that debt and they end up in poverty. So there are some very intentional things that we're doing while they're with us to expose them to what are some of those opportunities. And again, for us, it's not to pigeonhole them where you are only going directly to work, you are only going here, you are only going there. Giving those broad opportunities so that you can decide the path that you want to take that makes the most sense for you after you earn that high school, that high school diploma. We are not making every child take an AP course, but we're not eliminating students from taking that AP course. I am going to do a plug here for a book that I learned about through the Lancaster Chamber. Think Again. This is something I'm not quite sure what I haven't tabbed in this book, quite honestly. But when you talk about the generational differences, this doesn't speak directly to generational differences, but this challenges all of us with some of maybe our unconscious bias. While it doesn't talk about unconscious bias, to rethink and not act like a preacher or a politician and just want to get our point across and not really actively listen to the other person, and more think like a scientist and be willing to adapt and adjust and change our thinking and beliefs. So our entire leadership team is reading this book right now and engaging in this work. And it has been so relevant for us to get at what you were talking about, Kevin, because it's actually helped me with 2 different conversations with students this week. It's more of a motivational inquiry and asking more curiosity questions than assuming that we know the answers to those questions.
Thank you. And Adam has a great.
I'm not getting paid.
No, Adam has a great podcast if you're interested in that.
Yes,
I do take mild offense to the attack on both pastors and politicians having run for political office and being a pastor.
Nope. I found I operated in that preacher and politician mode a lot.
Exactly. So Marilyn, I saw you were unmuting there, or Miranda, either one of you, as we close out here.
Yeah, just quickly, and I am a believer of higher ed. I think we need to be able to provide that opportunity to everyone. And something that we are doing now at Tech Centro is that our students going to the medical assistant program that we do in partnership with HAC will get 30 credits to the health management program at the college. So we're cutting in half over there the cost of going to a college career, and we are going to follow the same model with Ida Stevens, in addition to bringing another community college at Tech Centro, providing over $20,000 in scholarships. And the idea is, again, is make it affordable. I'm a mom that my kid is going to college and it's expensive, and we know that our community maybe can't have access to that. So I'm taking the participant as adults. They couldn't make it out of high school, maybe join a school. So right now we're providing this creative ways, out of the box ways to make sure that they can get that higher ed degree is essential. So We have to think outside the box, Kevin. We cannot continue doing the same traditional ways, because that doesn't result in anything. So I am very proud of saying that we are moving into that direction with our community members.
Thank you. Yeah.
Kevin, can I give a shout out to Peter Caddick for
Oh, yeah.
facilitating the CRL? Thank you, Peter. He
Yes.
did a lot of great work and gave us a lot of guidance and insights on what a wonderful product. I didn't see where it would end when we first started, and you got there in a hurry. So great job.
Second that.
facilitating.
Yep.
It's
Miranda?
been instrumental for this work.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of what everybody was saying. And, you know, I love to talk about the opportunities that if you're in the pre-apprenticeship program, you get the hours towards an apprenticeship. And then that's what our model is. And then if you decide, if you do want to go to a four-year college, we articulate with Hack and Thaddeus Stevens, kind of like what Marilyn was saying. And you can use our hours to get to there. You get your gen eds, and then you get your degree. So like, you always have opportunity and you'll always have a choice. And, you know, our teachers, talking a little bit about the generational gap, our teachers are real-time workers. They work during the day and they come and teach at night. And I think that diversity and that ability to have them in front of them and see, okay, I bring this to the table, they bring this to the table, how can we work together? You know, children bring the new, fresh ideas, but then the older generation has the tribal knowledge that they need to be successful in their career. So being able to see that firsthand is awesome. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your views and everything. It's been really refreshing to hear all of your ideas.
Yes, so thank you all. And we're at 1 o'clock here. Just a few quick things. I know in still Zoom world where you click and then you click and you're halfway across the county. I know you all probably have meetings right here at 1, but just a thank you. Yes, a special shout out to Peter Caddick, who we celebrate with him his retirement from CNH, but he will continue to be involved with CRL, but we thank you for your leadership on this. Also a special shout out to Anna Ramos and Kim Patrick. From my team, Maddie Seiler also helps with CRL, and just the behind the scenes here, Kyle Gamble, some others. So thank you all for everyone who put this together. Thank you all panelists for your insight, for your wisdom, for your thoughts. Just one last piece of encouragement, which is that the community continues to get better when we fight for one another. It gets worse when we fight only for ourselves. And so as we do this, let's think about who are we bringing with us. When we get invited to a table, pull up an empty chair and tell those who invited you, there's someone else who's not here. Let's go out, let's find that person. Let's make sure they're welcome. And let's make sure that that chair has wheels so that someone can sit on it if they're older. Let's make sure that there's a space if someone needs to bring a wheelchair. Let's make sure that whoever needs to be at that table is both invited and welcomed and accommodated. Thank you each for the ways in which you do that. We are going to continue to make Lancaster a world-leading place for individuals to work, to live, to play, to stay. And I thank each one of you who is on this or watching this recording for the ways in which you do that. Each and every day is a new opportunity to make sure our community gets better and stronger. So last plug, Chamber Consortium is coming. That's a way for you to get involved as well. If you're trying to help us think how we're moving forward in this workforce space, please feel free to reach out to us if you're looking to be involved in Career Ready Lancaster. And if you are in any way interested in a financial contribution to the United Way of Lancaster County, we welcome that. It helps us to put on events like this and others that we do in the community. Thank you so much, everybody.